there's three policy initiatives that I think make sense and that voters can support. Number one, in the U.S., and I'll be U.S.-centric here, in the U.S., the real action right now is at the state level. The federal government has done nothing. The right policy at the U.S. would be for Congress to pass a carbon price bill. It's not going to happen. But the states, through a combination of subsidies and renewable energy mandates that say the utilities have to be X% renewable by a certain period of time, are driving the adoption of renewables. By scaling up the industry, they're actually driving the unit cost down. Because as you build them at higher level, you spend more money in R&D in the private sector, the cost goes down. So that's fantastic. If you're a voter, the number one thing you can do is call your state rep, call your state senator. These people get almost no calls to their offices. Most people don't even know who they are. Look them up, call them, and say, hey, you support the renewable energy portfolio standard, and you want it to be a little bit higher. All right. Number two policy. The U.S. spends about $5 billion a year on clean energy R&D. Clean energy R&D drives down the cost of solar, wind, gets us closer to batteries that can work at scale. That $5 billion a year is about what Americans spend on toothpaste. It's nothing. It's about a third in real numbers of what we used to spend in the 1980s on clean energy, and it is the single clean energy policy or single climate policy that has the most political support in the U.S. is to boost that number. Boosting that number from $5 billion to $16 billion is what Bill Gates has proposed is relatively trivial, but it would have a real impact in bending the cost slope of getting solar and wind and batteries to be cheaper or faster. Number three, and this is the big one that's going to happen or not happen soon. The Supreme Court has ruled that the Clean Air Act gives the EPA the power in the U.S. to regulate carbon dioxide. The EPA under the Obama administration has proposed putting new standards on new coal-burning power plants that would force them to be cleaner. It has been floated, the idea of putting standards in place on existing coal-burning power plants that reduce their CO2 emissions. The law gives them the ability to do so. Whether or not they do will be a question about political courage, and it's an open question. There's stories in the news that next month Obama is going to unveil a set of initiatives doing this. Instead of arguing about Keystone XL or whatever, argue about Keystone XL, fight for it. Fight for the right action at the EPA. That is actually the single biggest thing that Obama, with a brush of a pen or the single instruction to his cabinet, can make happen about climate. It's at least an order of magnitude and probably 2 orders of magnitude larger than Keystone XL. So those are the three things that I think matter in the next 5-10 years in the very messy middle up and middle out sort of way that climate policy is actually being enacted. I'm a computer scientist by training. I spent 13 years at Microsoft. I have a book that just came out that is about environment and innovation called The Infinite Resource. Technical innovation is capable of solving most of the problems that we have, but the market incentives aren't necessarily right now because the prices we have in the market that drives most of our investment don't really calculate in the value of the economy. That's what's wrong with a lot of what's going on today.